everyone, and welcome to another fight interview. Today, I have the short notice pleasure, just like his fight is happening on short notice. I guess we're doing an interview short notice. We've got Tanner, the bulldozer, Boser. First of all, Tanner, thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah, no worries, man. I don't got a ton going on right now.
Well, you're fighting this weekend, Saturday. You're fighting on the upcoming card. We're going to be talking about that. But before we do, I just need to do all the shout outs. First of all, make sure you check out thefightsite.com. Ton of articles, excellent analysts. You're going to love it. Make sure you check us out on Patreon. It really does help us a lot when we have direct support. Allows us to do a lot of extra things. You get access to the Discord channel, all that stuff. Make sure you check out the merchandise website. Get something that you'd like. There's a lot of stuff to choose from. Check us out on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, all those places. Like, comment, subscribe, everything. And also make sure you check out the link at the bottom of the Fight Site website for hyperbrandfly.com. They are both a BJJ gi and no gi brand, as well as a lifestyle brand. They have a lot of great stuff. Make sure you check them out. With that, let's actually get started on the interview. First of all, Tanner, you're fighting against Rafael Passau. It's short notice fights, and kind of with everything going on, everything is kind of a little bit messed up. First of all, tell us how you got the call and, the process by which you got out there, how it worked out, and what the experience right now for you is like on Yas Island or Yes Island. I'm not sure what the name is.
Yeah, it's on Yas Island. I was offered the fight. I heard about the potential to take this fight maybe Monday morning. So I went to the gym. That was the first day I could go back to the gym, because in Canada, when you return from out of country, you have a 14-day quarantine that's mandatory. So I got out of quarantine, went to the gym, hit a really hard conditioning, like strength and conditioning session. And my coach said, yeah, you can take the fight if you want. So we took it. Both my coaches were cool with it. And then it did come together, and I signed it a couple days later. So I signed it on, I think, the Wednesday. So I got offered it on Monday, trained Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then flew out on Thursday.
Damn. So it's short notice for you, and for people who aren't aware, Tanner actually most recently competed and knocked out Felipe Lins on the Dustin Poirier versus Daniel Hooker card, which was just June 27th. So I actually want to talk to you about that fight, because you looked A, fantastic, B, you looked to be in incredible shape, which is something that is kind of the opposite for a lot of fighters, most recently due to quarantine and not being able to train properly. Can you talk to us about the lead up to that fight, how you came in looking in probably the best shape we've seen you in for a little while, and the actual fight itself?
Yeah, well, because of the quarantine and all the things happening surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic, all I could really do was strength and conditioning. For a long time, before gyms reopened in Canada and things were allowed again, I just was training a lot by myself and just doing strength and conditioning any way I could, and just eating healthy. So I came in probably the best shape I've ever been, because all I could do was do strength and conditioning for a few hours a day. I couldn't really do anything else. What else was the other parts to that question?
So with the strength and conditioning and coming in really fantastic shape, the actual fight itself with the matchup, how did you prepare for the matchup itself in terms of game planning and actual execution in the fight?
Oh, well, I mean, the execution turned out to be perfect, although, you can't plan to knock somebody out right away. Maybe you can if you're like Francis Ngannou, but you can't if you're me. So all I could do is try and implement the things that would make him have to dance my dance. And it didn't even come to that, because I got him so early, but I'm fine with that. Obviously, that's the best case scenario of a fight. I win in a couple minutes, not have any damage. It's perfect.
Yep. So I actually wanted to ask you about the finish. I'm not sure if it's something you saw in the fight and adjusted to. That counter right over the top of his lead left, was it something you noticed that he was doing? He was trying to kind of like duck down and throw the left, and you timed that counter, or was it you were throwing the right hand? and it happened to catch him?
No, I knew that he liked to, he used jabs fairly well, and he should, and he's good at them. And he had a couple inches of reach on me, so his jab should be a little more effective than mine. But I knew that I could come over the top of his jab and catch him with that overhand right. So I caught the timing for it. He threw that jab a few times, and it was a matter of just getting the timing and then being able to connect on it. I saw it, obviously, in the fight, but I'd also planned for it. He didn't necessarily do anything wrong. I just got him.
Well, yes, excellent. So with regard to this next fight with Pascal, watching him fight, we've seen he's had a couple fights, and you actually both have a common opponent in Cyril Gane. What kind of prep could you do for this fight with regard to game planning specifically, if any? And what are your thoughts on the style matchup based on what you've seen versus in his fights with Gane and Jeff Hughes, and if you watched his prior to UFC fights as well?
Yeah, so I trained really hard for 3 days, like a maniac for 3 days, just trying to get my body back in shape. But in terms of game planning, yeah, I talked to my coaches and we all have ideas and stuff, but how much could I really work on a game plan in 3 days? Probably not a ton. So I'm going to work on that out here over the course of the week. It's all good. You can, as long as you have a game plan in your head and you rep it out a few times on pads. I've got a lot of fights. I know how to fight. All I have to do is go in there and fight. I'll find his rhythm. I'll figure him out, and I'll be able to hopefully put in a decent night of work. What was the other parts of the question?
If you saw anything in his previous fights that you specifically think that you might be able to take advantage of, because he's a much bigger. Yeah,
he's bigger. He's bigger than everybody's bigger than me. I'm a small heavyweight, so I hear about it all the fucking time that I should go down to 205.
nah.
First of all, he's a guy that is dangerous because he throws hard. He's got a hard right hand, and he throws pretty recklessly and in a way that makes him dangerous because he almost has no regard for himself at certain times. He throws a lot of spinning stuff. He's a wild guy. There's things I have to be weary of, and I can't let him settle into. And yes, there's one or two things that I feel, at least in his previous fights, are glaring, and I should be able to take advantage of. I'm not going to say what those are. Whether or not he shored up those things, I mean, he could have. The last time he fought was in October. That's a long time ago. I can't go in with an overly concrete game plan. I just have to go in, trust that, 2.5 weeks ago, I was in the best shape of my life, and that my body's going to remember it, and I can just go in and fight him and win however I can. It's going to be nice to have a back-to-back payday, basically.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of, people probably, like you said, are telling you constantly to move down, and I actually disagree. You are someone who, focused your style on striking, and I do want to actually talk to you about the development of your style over the course of your career. You use a ton of leg kicks very effectively, as we've seen in your fights already, just in the UFC, if you haven't seen his prior fights. There's a lot of movement, and these are things that most heavyweights aren't necessarily capable of doing or defending against, your speed and your movement. So first, coming up, I know that you have an interesting story of getting into martial arts and MMA in general, with the EMT and deciding to become an EMT and then going back to fighting, if I'm not mistaken, something like that.
Yeah, that was in the middle of fighting, though. That wasn't really before. Yeah. It's a whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just tell us about how you developed your style and training mentality. I would like to know more about that.
Well, I did karate growing up, so I favored striking right out the gate, but I don't know. I preferred watching striking over grappling as a whole. Of course, I have an appreciation for it, and I consider myself well-rounded, even though you don't see the other aspects of my game too often. But yeah, I prefer to strike, and I feel like against most guys, especially all these Brazilians with their black belts, who knows who's actually good and who's not, it's probably better for me to just keep it on the feet. I don't know how I've developed my style. Certain things just work for a guy, and your coaches see that, and you just develop. Everybody develops differently in different aspects, and the footwork, low kicks, they're just things that I have and had an affinity for, and of course I work at them really hard, and do a lot of stuff to make them better and make myself more efficient at them. But I think a lot of it comes down to just body type and what you end up just being better at doing naturally.
And the when you are, I guess, normally training, how much, I know that the mentality is kind of different and the philosophies on it different. How much, I guess, sparring to technical ratio is your training camp consist of usually?
Yeah, we spar every Sunday. We spar, and those are like I'll do like a good fight worth of sparring, whether it's like a good 3 5-minute rounds. Sometimes I'll do 3 5s, take a break, do 3 more 5s. If I don't have a fight coming up, I'll just do a bunch of rounds with changing opponents. Sometimes you get shark tanked. We also do some sparring on Thursdays, which is usually after like a grappling and combat jits kind of day. So that's you're more tired when you go into that sparring session as opposed to Sunday where you come in fresh. I guess 2 nights a week typically we do sparring.
And I guess back to the actual current situation, it's interesting that you're one of the few people it seems to have not affected. So it's just very interesting to see that. And while we're on the topic of you're in another country, this is the 8th or 9th different country you've been able to compete in. You fought all over the world. You're Canada and Kazakhstan and I mean everywhere. First off, what was your favorite place to go and compete? Curious, just as a personal question. I'm genuinely curious about that kind of stuff for the world travel.
Yeah, what was my favorite place to compete in, or just to go to?
Go to place you enjoyed when you were competing there.
Probably Australia. That was
okay.
That was nice. It was nice outside. There was no COVID, so you could walk around and check stuff out. And we stayed for a few weeks after, and had some fun there. Got to experience some stuff. So fighting in Brisbane, Australia was probably my favorite experience in a place that I went to fight.
The next question I have for you is this is a short notice fight. In the current climate with the pandemic and everything, are you looking to continue to take more short notice fights, considering everything that's going on, and try and take advantage of it, the situation, or would you prefer after this fight, or just as a general statement, to have longer camps if possible?
It depends what happens in this fight. If I get banged up and I have injuries, then I can't take a short notice fight, and I'm going to need time to heal, which in turn will give me time to train. Maybe I can't. Shit. Headphones come out.
No worries. No worries.
Sorry, these don't stay in my ears very good.
No worries.
That would give me time to train. I might not be able to do everything, but I'll definitely be able to do some things and start working on whatever I can, really. If I come out of it perfectly unscathed, well, I'll play it by ear. If I get offered a short notice fight, I might do it. I've never turned one down. So I'll have to play it by ear, because now after I do another quarantine after this, it'll be like I haven't actually trained in like 5 weeks. So that's getting to be a long time. So I'll play it by ear, but yeah, I got to see what happens in this fight. I really doubt I'm going to get out of this one like unscathed. That's not going to happen to me twice. I'm going to be banged up, I'm sure. So I'll probably need a little bit of time off or have a bit of a medical suspension.
Well, hopefully not, but we'll see. I guess this is actually one of the questions I generally ask is, how much do you personally or do your team look into kind of scouting out opponents to try and schedule fights against? Do you attempt to find matchups that would favor you stylistically? Is it more you just whatever they give you, or they give you a list and they tell you 3 guys and they say which one do you think would make sense, or do you or your team send them names that you're looking to fight to advance forward?
That's never been a thing. I don't know if that's a thing for some people. Maybe it is when you're, ranked really high. I get told who I'm fighting and when, and I do it. That's what I do. I don't send a list of favorable matchups. You think I thought Cyril Gahn was a favorable matchup?
Very
I
fair.
I accept any fight I'm given, and wherever it is, I don't care. I just do it.
I mean, that makes sense considering that most fighters, but I was always just curious if it's something fighters generally think about. Um, the final question I have is like you said, you're going back. Hopefully, you're going to be able to have a proper training camp again soon. Um, what is the current training situation going to be like? Is it closed to? I'm not sure. I know, like I was talking to Zach Mikowski. He said TriStar is technically closed still, or was closed until recently. They were only letting the pro fighters in and stuff like that. Is that the situation that it is with you and your camp, or is it fully open at this point, or is it opening up at least?
It's not fully open. It's open to a limited number of members. You have to have a membership in order to be considered a cohort, which is a current buzzword the government's using. And cohorts can train together and stuff, which is a certainly ambiguous term that they're using so that they can, either let stuff go or get people in shit because no one knows what the fuck's going on. So we are open to people who get memberships, and I don't know the exact number of people. There's a very limited amount of people who are allowed in each class. Yes, our pro team is training as we are all cohorts, and as far as I know, that's the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future at our gym right now.
I got that. It's not open at all here. So I'm in New York City, so it's
okay.
Opening up anytime soon. I train at Marcelo Garcia's in the city.
Yeah.
They're not. No one knows. So
right. Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, it is what it is. But they're doing a lot for the people who are still able to pay their memberships. Before we go, is there any sponsors? I want to make sure if you have any sponsors outside of Reebok or whatever they allow that you'd like to shout out. Any the name of your gym, whatever you'd want to shout out, please.
Sure. I got my sponsors are PPS, that's Paul Pedal Services, BBN Consulting, Premier Built Garages, and Mealcraft. And my gyms are Little Sweatshop, and our fight team there is the Shaved Bears. And I train also at Frank Lee's Muay Thai. My coaches are Jeff Montemuro and Kedro Noda, and my corners out here are Teddy Ash and KB Buller.
Awesome. Tanner, thanks so much for joining me. I actually really appreciate it. I know it's short notice and stuff. Usually I try to prepare a little bit longer, so I do appreciate you taking the time to do this. Before we go, everyone, again, make sure you check out the fight site. Make sure you check out Tanner Boser's next fight against Rafael Pasao this weekend, Saturday night. Also, make sure you follow Tanner on Twitter. What is your Twitter username again?
At Bulldozer Boser.
Make sure you give him a shout. Go support him. Really, I'm sure it would appreciate it. And until next time, thank you for joining us for another Fight Side interview. And make sure you check out both the website, the YouTube channel. Check us out on Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. The merchandise website, hyperbrandfly.com. Tanner, again, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, man. No, appreciate it. Thanks for giving me your lunch break here.
Absolutely. No problem.